How you rebuild? With the community you grew up with, your neighbors, your friends, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters and brothers.
Ida, I mean, it devastated our tribal community, but we're still here, and we have still survived.
Climate injustice is one of the biggest issues facing communities of color here in Louisiana. I've already seen how the state is rapidly losing land on the coast and how environmental racism is impacting historically Black communities along the Mississippi. And today I'm heading back down the coast to Duloc and Ile-de-Jean-Charles. These coastal communities are home to several indigenous tribes and were hit hard by Hurricane Ida. Many of these tribes don't have federal recognition, which they say impacts their ability to prepare for storms. But these communities have also been losing their lands to coastal erosion for decades. Before I head down there, I'm meeting with Chief Laura Ann Chasson of the United Houma Nation to learn how storms have impacted their community and lands.
So our tribe originated around the Baton Rouge, Angola area. And with the European encroachment, we started migrating south. One of our last settlement was in Houma, which the city is named after our tribe, but the majority of our people now lives in Terrebonne Parish.
And so how has the land and area changed in your lifetime?
Drastically. We're seeing stronger storms. I mean, this last one, Ida, I mean, it devastated our tribal communities, in not only our tribe, but South Louisiana. I mean, like where I live at, there's only 20% of the homes left. And where my dad's from, I mean, there's hardly anything left there. At one time, we had what they call the Barrier Islands that protected Louisiana. Well, now we're the Barrier Islands.
I want to ask you about your connection to Ile-de-Jean-Charles.
It was a beautiful area. It was all family. You could walk up and down the street, and it's just family. This last hurricane really took a toll on the community. But there's some people that's just not going nowhere, which I don't blame them, I mean, it's your home.
So how do other people in your community feel about the resettlement project?
The resettlement project, the people that wrote the grant does not live there. And it's not a fair project.
The Ile-de-Jean-Charles voluntary resettlement has been a contentious project. The state was awarded a federal grant back in 2016. But it wasn't until this year that indigenous communities began moving into the neighborhood known as the New Isle, some 40 miles inland. State official Pat Forbes, who heads the Office of Community Development, has been involved with the project since the beginning.
Having people trust a project like this, a government project like this, especially based on the history that they've had as a community for centuries, is very difficult. My staff and I, right? And I mean, none of us lived on the island, but we were working with tribal leadership from the Biloxi, Chitimacha, Choctaw tribe. And as soon as we discovered that, in fact, we didn't have this homogenous group of one tribe on the island, I guess I would say that it didn't really change the planning process that much, because we were already planning to engage folks in these one-on-one interviews and group meetings, which is exactly what we did. But since August and up until about 2 weeks ago, we've gotten all 34 of the original families have moved into their houses or moving in. And then from there, it's a matter of just continuing to enhance the community.
How have people in your community been able to preserve your culture and some of the land, what's left of it?
We are resilient people. We're still here today. We still have a lot of our culture intact. But I just think that federal recognition would definitely help us to give us the resources for health care, land, education. Even though we might not have a title, it's still our land because we're indigenous to this country. I think that we need to get back some of that land for us.
Chief Laura Ann told me that her community is now the last barrier when major storms come to the coast of Louisiana. So I'm heading down to the bayou to see what's going on down there. The chief's family owns the marina on Ile de Jean Charles, and that's where I'm meeting Shenandoah Billiot, a professor at Arizona State who grew up in the area and is studying how climate change has impacted her tribe.
A majority of tribal citizens can trace their ancestry back to people living on this island, because this is where our ancestors were forced relocation. All of the people that live on this island as their primary home have been asked to leave. Before that, people were choosing to leave because they can no longer grow food, raise cattle, harvest even. Many people used to be able to just go outside and harvest enough crabs to feed your family, and people can't do that anymore. There's lack of infrastructure even just coming in, that the closest grocery store is in Houma.
Storms have impacted all kinds of infrastructure across the bayou, including schools. So I'm going to meet Abraham Parfait. He's a United Houma Nation citizen who lost his home in Hurricane Ida and is now fighting to reopen his local school.
No lights, no water. My son was crying because all he wanted was a place to sleep. I went to church, cried. My preacher told me, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just lost everything I had with a 2-year-old and an 11-year-old. We're at Grand Kai Elementary School. Hurricane Ida came in. Mother Nature took out our roof. Well, we're fighting with our school board right now because FEMA said that 90% of whatever cost it is to bring it up at code, elevated to be built in this spot, FEMA's going to agree to pay 90% at whatever elevated cost. And the school board doesn't want to pay 10% in our community. They want to move us in a neighborhood where our babies are in the middle of Houma. Why they don't want to put a school back in our community is beyond me.
Abraham, what's the ask here?
The school board needs to help us save our community.
Weeks after meeting with Abraham, his community received some good news. The Terrebonne School Board voted to rebuild Grand Caillou Elementary in its current location.
Your community's been through a lot of challenges, a lot of trauma. How do you heal and process that?
With each other. The best thing to do is go sit at church and see everybody you grew up with. Heal with each other. How you rebuild? With the community you grew up with. Your neighbors, your friends, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters and brothers.
Many tribal citizens have been faced with a tough decision, whether or not to leave their communities due to rising waters and disappearing lands. So I'm meeting back up with Shenandoah and her relative, Louise Billiot, who faced a similar choice.
I love Dulac because, of course, it's my hometown. It was our safe haven. It's where we knew each other, we helped each other. The landscape has changed, but with the landscape, attitudes and lifestyles have changed also.
What impact have storms had on this community?
I'm a little bit younger than you, but I feel like I've seen a great deal of changes. The water is much closer to the buildings than I remember.
A long time ago, we were able to come in, sweep out the water, and we were good to go. Now it takes months. My elder mom and I live together, and just a heavy rainstorm caused whole street to flood. And if the water came up that high, just think what it's going to do during a hurricane. So we decided to move to Houma.
So seeing all these cultural changes, these environmental changes, how do you process and heal from that?
So I'm one to want to teach about the past and kind of keep those cultural histories alive. Louisiana, Dulac, our stories here, regardless of what the climate is going to do, we're still going to be here.
This community has experienced so much trauma, losing their homes, their resources, and their land. But people like Louise, Shenandoah, Abraham, and Chief Chasson are all focused on what their future looks like and how to heal.
We have been through so much, but we're still here, and we have still survived. Regardless of everything that we've been through, our people are resilient. And to be able to continue, I think people need to be reminded, you know, how great they are.
It is sad. There's times that I come down to visit family, and I do cry because it's really sad. I also have this strange hope that one day we can figure out how to adapt to this rapid changing environment and learn to live in places that are losing so much land.
The people I met in Louisiana left me with an even stronger appreciation and connection to this state. It's a place my ancestors also called home, and that sense of home isn't something that can just be erased. These communities of color are dealing with the consequences of climate change and systemic disparities. But despite these challenges, their decision to stay is a testament to their resilience. This land holds a sacred legacy of their ancestors and needs to be preserved, and that responsibility is on all of us.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.